The Act Against Hate Alliance is a statewide organization that is dedicated to stopping hate crimes in California. This crime trend has not escaped the attention of California lawmakers. Fiona Ma is a Californian of Chinese descent. Her parents immigrated to America to find a better life. Ma grew up in California. She served on the San Francisco County Board of Supervisors and now serves as California State Treasurer.
My parents were both born in China. I am the oldest daughter of immigrant parents, and so I have always been very sensitive to the needs of the immigrant community in all of the different elected positions that I've played.
What exactly is a hate crime? Some researchers call it a form of terrorism. Adam Rose is a research professor with the Price School of Public Policy at the University of Southern California.
It's very disconcerting to see this rise since 2013. And there are many reasons for it. Some people say it's easier now to report, but we all know also that Asians have been singled out much more than previously for terrorist attacks. And that's a serious problem we need to cope with.
Crimes of hate, unfortunately, are nothing new. This type of crime is up in California right now, but the motive for this type of crime is as old as the Bible. John Duran is the former mayor of West Hollywood.
Hate crimes existed in 1987, and they're still with us in 2022, heading into 2023. So where does that lead us to believe? What do we think about that? Well, I did 12 years in Catholic school, so I know just enough scripture to get myself in trouble. I'll say that. But if you want to go back and look over time, you will find evidence of hate crimes going all the way back, New Testament, Old Testament, all the way back to the days of Neanderthal man, when one tribe went up against the other because they were different.
The core mission of the Act Against Hate Alliance is to identify the root causes behind hate crimes and propose solutions to stop them. The organization was co-founded by former California State Senate Minority Leader Bob Huff and Mei Ho Huff.
Our goal is not just to talk about it, but to find real, meaningful, and lasting solutions. As a diverse society, we must aspire to be respectful, compassionate, nonpartisan, and inclusive.
This effort by the Act Against Hate Alliance is made possible through funding from the California State Library's Stop the Hate initiative.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm former State Senator Bob Huff, and I'm the program's MC today. You just watched some highlights of last month's program compiled by Bill Bird and Ronnie Chung. Today's briefing is the fifth in a series of monthly media briefings hosted by the Act Against Hate Alliance with grant funding from the California State Library's Stop the Hate program. The nation just celebrated the life of the Reverend Martin Luther King 2 days ago. I'd like to read one of his quotes that's appropriate today as it was when he spoke them. Dr. King said, "When evil men plot, good men must plan. When evil men burn and bomb, good men must build and bind. When evil men shout ugly words of hatred, good men must commit themselves to the glories of love. Where evil men would seek to perpetuate an unjust status quo, good men must seek to bring into being a real order of justice." As Dr. King said, when evil men plot, good men must plan. That's the goal that inspires our work here at Act Against Hate Alliance. I'd like to turn the microphone over to my wife, Mei, for a few opening remarks. Mei?
Thank you, Bob. Can you hear me? Good. Thank you, Bob. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your attendance and your support for this program. Act Against Hate Alliance was founded in 2022 to focus on finding and implementing solutions against hate crimes. With collaboration from government leaders, community members, experts, law enforcement, educators, policymakers, and thought leaders. Act Against Hate Alliance's progress is already notable with an honest dialogue, which has started identifying root causes of hate crimes. One fundamental key to the Act Against Hate Alliance's solutions focus is programming for education institutions from preschool to university, programming that provides students with a nurturing platform for discussion, open expression, and a consistent, clear foundation that makes inclusion and diversity second nature to them. But just as important is getting students at different levels involved in minimizing hate crimes and hate incidents as a part of their civic engagement while attending school. Back to you, Bob.
Thanks, Maymay. Our emphasis today is on all aspects of education, as Maymay just said, as a means to reduce the numbers of hate crimes. We have a state senator engaged in education issues, a police chief, a trustee on a county board of education, an executive from an education leader search firm, as well as high school and college student. To our media friends, please log your name, organization, and email address in the chat so we can send you follow-up material related to this meeting. You can post any questions you have in the chat, and when our presenters have finished, if you have time, we will respond to your questions then. Please address any chat you post to everyone and not specifically to just me or Maymay. Our first presentation is from Senator Josh Newman, who wasn't able to join us in person today, but did record some comments. Senator Newman was elected to the 29th Senate District in 2016 and re-elected to a second term 2 years ago. Seems like years ago because he succeeded me in the state Senate in the 29th District. He's known for being a pragmatic legislator, focusing on issues important to his district, including transportation and education. Newman was recently named chairman of the prestigious Senate Education Committee. Senator Newman is a Yale graduate and with his wife Darcy resides in Fullerton, California.
Hello, I'm State Senator Josh Newman, and I have the honor of representing California's 29th Senate District, which includes parts of Orange, Los Angeles, and San Bernardino counties. This past August, I had the privilege of joining my predecessor, former State Senator Bob Huff, along with his wife and partner Maymay, for the launch of the Act Against Hate Alliance. As you know, it's a disconcerting fact that over the past few years, our state, and in fact the nation at large, has been engulfed in what can only be described as a rising tide of hate. Misinformation around the COVID-19 pandemic, the recent rise of white nationalism, and our nation's long and troubled history of discrimination have resulted in some of the highest hate crime rates California has seen in decades. According to a 2021 report from the Attorney General's office, since 2012, the number of reported hate crimes in California has increased almost 90%. Specifically, anti-transgender and gender nonconforming hate crimes have increased by 221%. Anti-Semitic hate crimes have increased by 67%. And anti-Asian hate crimes have increased by an unfathomable 974%. These numbers are obviously very troubling. What's more, though, is that we know that they actually barely scratch the surface, since actual hate crimes tend to be severely underreported. In fact, a 2021 report from the U.S. Department of Justice found that more than 40% of violent hate crime victims actually never report their incidents to law enforcement. It's a sad reality, though, that too many people, especially first-generation Californians, actually don't recognize when hateful behavior to which they've been subjected constitutes an actual crime. Even worse, there's still a fairly pervasive sentiment that the objects of hateful acts simply need to tough it out and move on with their lives and not bother the police. The current reality, however, underscores an important message, that hate and hateful acts should have no place in California. It alters the course of a victim's life, it endangers the public safety, and it attacks the very notion of what it means to be an American. So it's imperative that we respond to hate with a multifaceted approach that promotes public education on prevention, intervention, and supportive services for victims. With that in mind, I'd like to thank my colleagues in the API Legislative Caucus for securing a record $165 million over 3 years for a number of important programs that will help California address the root causes of racism and hate. The funding expands anti-bias education within our schools, improves data collection, and most importantly, provides $110 million for victim services, interracial multicultural dialogue, and bystander education. But the work cannot end there. It's incumbent upon each of us to take an active role in denouncing hate. It's my hope, as it is also the hope of Bob and Maymay Huff, that by establishing January 28th as Stand Against Hate Action Day through the Senate concurrent resolution that I'm currently carrying, that we will all take steps to be better citizens, both as advocates and as bystanders when reporting incidents, supporting victims, and intervening when it is safe to do so. I'd like to once again thank Bob and Mei Huff for their leadership on this effort, and I look forward to working together to address and reverse the rise in hate while building a more welcoming and inclusive California. May we all stand together against hate. Thank you.
So that's Senator Newman, and we at Act Against Hate Alliance really appreciate partnering with him, and he's carrying the legislation, he said, that will declare January 28th the Stand Against Hate Action Day. We believe that's a first step to help increase community awareness, have activities and other things focused on that, and we'll talk more about that as we go forth. That will be heard in the Senate the week of January 28th, probably the Thursday before, and then it will go over to the Assembly afterwards for concurrence. Our second presenter is Police Chief of San Ramon, Denton Carlson, who reacted immediately after hearing of a reported incident by seeking, identifying, and arresting a man accused of making racist and homophobic comments in a rant against two people at a San Ramon fast food restaurant on Christmas Eve. San Ramon Chief of Police Denton Carlson holds a master's degree in Emergency Services Administration from CSU Long Beach and is a graduate of the California Peace Officer Standards and Training Command College, where he received the Dorothy Harris Award for Outstanding Academic Excellence. He's also a graduate of the California Police Chiefs Association Executive Development Certificate Program and the Executive Certificate Program in Transformative Leadership from CSU East Bay. In addition, he's a member of the faculty at the University of San Diego, where he teaches within their master's program in law enforcement and public safety leadership. Chief Carlson, we're so glad you could join us today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. And Bob and Mamie, thank you for the work that you do. And again, extending the invite for me to be here today. It was an interesting circumstances that led to the actions that we took over the Christmas holiday. And, we live in a very, very quiet community here. I live in the area. I have the best police job in the world, being the leader of the San Ramon Police Department. And I think that's a key component involved in this, is that when I saw what had taken place on Christmas Eve, I was able to take pretty quick actions. And a lot of that is based on what we've been able to develop here in San Ramon and what we've been able to really enhance as far as our community outreach system. So we've been very involved in our local social media and pushing out to the community and having a relationship in a service-based organization here. And so when this came about, it was actually Christmas morning. And as you can imagine, I was in the family room and we were in the midst of opening presents, and there was a notification that came across from someone on social media who had tagged our organization. And it involved the video that was posted by the victims in this case on TikTok. And so taking the platforms we've developed and the relationship that we've had with the community, we were able to boost that out and say, hey, if anyone knows who these individuals are, please have them contact us so we can take the appropriate action. And I think the important component in that is that we're using the platforms that we had developed to really increase our engagement with the community to be able to contact the people who are the victims here. And I think you mentioned several times, and it's already come up probably 3 or 4 times, the value of education. And in this situation, that was directly related to what we were able to do, because we're very familiar with the California laws that are in place as they surround hate crime and hate speech and what it takes to get to a criminal level. And in this case, understanding and knowing where freedom of speech ends and hate speech begins was critical. We used in the penal code, it's 422.6. subsection A. And what that has, the California legislature has put in place for a tool for us in law enforcement, is when you take that speech and it rises to the level where you're intimidating, you're threatening, you're disturbing the public peace of someone based on their perceived characteristics, then you've risen to a criminal level. And knowing that and having that in our back pocket to be able to take the actions that we needed was critical. So the other component that comes with this is from a law enforcement perspective, as we talk about philosophies and in policing, what we need to change And what I can do as a leader to make that change move forward is really understanding the victim compassion. So through social media, we were able to contact the people who were at the restaurant that evening. They reached out directly to me via Twitter, and I engaged with them. And it was just a simple messaging back and forth and letting them know that as a law enforcement organization, we're here for them. We want to investigate this further. We want to be an advocate for them to make sure this crime is brought to justice. So with that engagement, with the community involvement, we were able to identify the suspect that was involved. We were able to take appropriate action, and within less than 24 hours, or excuse me, less than 48 hours after the crime occurred, and a little more than 24 hours after we were notified of what took place, we were able to take the individual into custody for violations of Penal Code 422.6, hate crimes within the state of California. So I think being able to take that swift action, knowing what is in our pocket and the tools that we can use based on the laws that have been put into place is critical for us in law enforcement. And as an industry leader and as an organizational leader in law enforcement, it's using this platform that we've been given the opportunity to take the action, to put it out there that this is not going to be tolerated in our community, and advocating for these actions has been critical. As a matter of fact, just roughly about an hour before this meeting started, I had another local police chief in the Bay Area reach out to me directly via text message. Someone, you mentioned Command College, this was someone that I went to and attended that course with, reached out directly and said, hey, how did you guys handle this? What did you use? Because we have a case that's going down these same lines. And so it's using these platforms and using the experience we have to advocate, to spread the word, and to be able to be there to understand that from a law enforcement perspective, these types of actions are no longer going to be tolerated. We are going to take the appropriate measures because we have the tools to be able to do it. So I think from our perspective in a law enforcement, that's what we want to do as an organization. As the leader of this organization, it's my role to set the example for what I'm expect our people in this organization to do, and as an industry, what is expected from law enforcement moving forward. So again, thank you, Bob. Thank you, Meme, for the opportunity to be here today. As we move forward, I will add my information into the chat. If anyone has any follow-up questions or anything, I'll be here later on. Or if anyone would like to reach out offline, I'd be more than happy to connect and talk more about what we were able to accomplish.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing your touching story. I mean, you were literally rousted out of your Christmas day, hopefully a quiet day, time with your family, and moved into action because it benefited the community. Our third presenter today is Trustee Tim Shaw. Tim Shaw serves as a trustee on the Orange County Board of Education, where he has been a strong advocate for parental rights and education choice for the students of Orange County. Trustee Shaw also serves as an adjunct professor of political science at Rio Hondo College. Tim Shaw served on the La Habra City Council from 2008 to 2022, where he also served a distinction twice as mayor and represented his city regionally on numerous boards and commissions. Shaw has a bachelor's degree from Southern Illinois University, a master's degree in legislative affairs from George Washington University, and an executive certificate in public leadership from Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. Trustee Tim Shaw, with his wife Shannon, has six sons, and lives in La Habra. Tim, the microphone is yours.
Thank you, Senator. It's true, we could never get a girl. We've tried. It's a real honor for me to be here with you, and thank you guys for your leadership as always, and doing this great work of combating hate across our state. Here in Orange County, we are home to one of the most important civil rights cases that really helped turn the tide in the 20th century, Mendez versus City of Westminster. And we recently commemorated that anniversary, and that really helped lay the groundwork for desegregating schools across our whole country. So at our Orange County Department of Education, we do try to commemorate the different months that come up, Native American History Month and these other, things that come up every year. We make mention of and try to do that. But of course, the education really is the key to combating hate and teaching young people to love all of God's children. And that work is ideally done in the home by the parents as they raise their children to love and respect everybody. But at the schools where we can try to play a role. And obviously, from an early age, students are in classrooms with other students from different races and learning to appreciate and learn about different cultures and different histories and people who might have come from a different part of the world. One anecdote I wanted to share, if I could for a moment. When I was in graduate school, I had a professor who he'd gotten his political science PhD, and for his doctorate paper, he wanted to research what causes political conflict within countries. And he approached this topic hypothesizing that it would probably be a religious difference or perhaps an ethnic difference, and these kind of differences cause political strife. But as he did his research, he actually came to the conclusion that if you could put your finger on one single thing, it was differences in language that often tended to be a barrier in countries. And he pointed to the divisions that had happened earlier in Canada's history, where the French and English populations were disagreeing and stuff. So that really stuck with me as he taught my class about that, and overcoming language barriers sometimes can be an obstacle, but a challenge. And one thing we do a very poor job in our country is having our young people learn different languages. So in my role as a County Board of Education member, I want to always encourage, and I'm trying to promote the idea of teaching our young people that they should have at least 2 languages or more. And one of the things we do at our County Board of Education is we get to charter different charter schools. So at the moment, we have 20 charter schools across Orange County that do a terrific job. One of them that's fairly new, I helped get chartered when I joined the board shortly after that, is the Irvine International Academy. And they have a very strong focus in their curriculum at teaching Chinese at their school. So we have young people, and there was a group of the parents who came to our meeting with their kids at our last board meeting, and here came a Hispanic family with a Hispanic boy who spoke Spanish, spoke English, and spoke Chinese. So I thought that was really impressive and really neat, and obviously helping to bridge different cultural rifts that might be out there. So with that, we just want to do everything we can at our board and our department to encourage young people that are in our care to learn and respect and appreciate different cultures at all times. So thank you, Senator, for inviting me.
Thank you, Tim, for sharing what's going on in Orange County and your perspectives on addressing this issue. And certainly our families are the first line of defense, but so often they have their own struggles, and then it falls upon the school system and the communities to do the job that the parents are deficient in. Having said that, our next presenter is Dr. Kevin O'Mara, a seasoned educational professional. He worked in education arena for over 30 years, serving as a teacher, dean of students, principal, and superintendent. Dr. O'Mara is president of School Exec Connect, has been with the firm for 6 years, and has led numerous searches throughout the Midwest. The retired superintendent of Argo Community High School District, Dr. O'Mara is currently associate professor in educational leadership at Concordia University, Chicago, teaching doctoral students who are also pursuing general administrative and superintendent licensure. Guided by a fundamental belief in the value of collaboration, reflection, and capacity building, O'Mara teaches new and experienced leaders that their dedication, knowledge, and input directly impact and enrich young lives. Having received numerous education awards and recognitions, Dr. O'Mara has a bachelor's degree in mathematics from Dominican University, a master's degree in public school administration from Concordia University, Chicago, and a doctorate in educational leadership from the same institution. Welcome, Dr. O'Mara. We look forward to hearing your comments.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Bob. And May, I appreciate the invitation to share this conversation with you today. As you have mentioned, I am a president and co-owner of School Exec Connect. We do searches across the United States for senior leadership in K-12 education and charter schools. and some private schools as well. My partner, Dr. David Negron, is a first-generation Mexican-American, and we have over 50% of our consultants, and we have over 70 are minorities or women or both. We're the only firm in the United States that has that kind of background. We take this very, very seriously. In schools, at least in the K-12 situation, most of these episodes are bullying kinds of episodes or hate speech or graffiti scrawled on bathrooms. And we have mandated that boards now that we work with have a strong presence on anti-hate kind of policies and procedures in place. The first thing that we mandate with boards that we work with, or strongly encourage at least, is to have a series of solidarity events against hate and bias throughout their community, usually 8 to 10 per school year. And there's several segments to that. I'm happy to discuss that more with anyone who would like to have a further conversation. In the Midwest, our hate crime percentage that was just released from last year is up 72%. So we've got a lot of work to do. In school settings, we encourage policies and procedures to align with, instead of straight out consequences for these kinds of actions on behalf of school children, to have several different kinds of actions take place. The two that we have found to be most impactful are guided reflection on behalf of the school children that are involved in these issues, and a restorative justice practice in place for schools. We feel that these have far-reaching effects on changing behaviors moving forward. We have combined our DEI and SEL programs. They're not separate anymore. They're one thing. They're helping students learn and grow and to accept all as human beings. And I think that's the central feature of our message going forward as we work with school boards, school children, especially parents and community members at large. Thank you again for the opportunity. Anyone who wants more information about these programs, please feel free to reach out. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Dr. Amara, for sharing your work that you're doing and you're offering your insights. And hopefully we'll have some questions at the end and we can pick your brain a little bit more. During our community engagement, we run into some exceptional students who are already making a difference in their respective schools. Two of them are joining us today, one high schooler and one university student, to share their thoughts. Our first student presenter is Aiden Chow, a junior at Flint Ridge Prep School, who has class at this time, but has graciously recorded his comments for us. Aiden Chow was born and reared in Arcadia and has participated in civic engagement since an early age, being spurred on by the challenges in his own city regarding public safety, education, and taxpayer issues. To that end, he has started advocacy initiatives and is engaged with helping elect others who share his beliefs.
Distinguished guests and members of the media, I am honored to have this privilege to speak on an issue that is near and dear to my heart: our bipartisan front against hate. To briefly introduce myself, my name is Aiden Chow. I'm a junior at Flint Ridge Preparatory School, a high school located in La Cañada, California. I've been involved in campaigning for local, statewide, and congressional candidates and initiatives for the past 5 years, being spurred to do so by inaction on policies I care deeply about, such as public safety, education, and fiscal responsibility. I have recognized that the status quo of California is not ideal, and I've dedicated much of my time and effort to supporting those who seek to improve conditions for all Californians, such as all of you on this call today. Recently, I have had such a wonderful opportunity to work with Senator Bob Huff and his wife May May on our frontline fight against another growing and worrying issue: hate crimes. In my view, the hate crimes that we see today and we hear about are not isolated acts, but part of a worrying and growing societal trend. To that end, we must take action on a range of the core issues which allow for the perpetuation of hate. One of our main focuses so far has been the issue that hate crimes, in the end, are still a form of crime. As Act Against Hate Alliance has previously addressed, we must not allow the criminals who commit these acts of hate to go unpunished. Crime has gotten out of control in the state, and it is those who are the most defenseless, our disadvantaged communities, who have suffered the most. I have personally heard the desperation of many in my community, the San Gabriel Valley, who live in fear as they witness their families, friends, and even strangers be significantly harmed by this current crime wave, where hate crimes are existing as well. Public safety has grown to become a massive issue in our state and in my community, and we must face it with honesty, accountability, and decisiveness. However, we must also recognize that hate crimes are not just a criminal justice issue, but also a cultural and societal issue. We must address the underlying prejudices and biases that lead to hate crimes. This means promoting fundamental American values such as personal responsibility, family, and community. These values are the foundation of a strong and healthy society, and they are essential in creating a culture of respect and tolerance for all. To that end, education is vital. We must ensure that our tomorrow, our youth, are not corrupted by divisive ideals and rhetoric, but are raised with unifying values. Therefore, today, I am pleased to introduce our youth initiative, which David Chan and I have partnered with Act Against Hate Alliance to create and pioneer and develop. We will be working with the youth, high school and college students who are impassioned to make a change and empower them to do so through action and goal-based programs. This includes our main goals. Firstly, coverage, which is news, press release, and public letters to the editor. Secondly, advocacy, students participating in rallies, public events, etc. And finally, legislation. That is what we are focused on for today's briefing. And I am working to have students advocate on a local level, analogous to the way AAHA and Senator Newman are on a statewide level. We are seeking to have students take the initiative on the passage of legislation which will recognize January 28th as Stand Against Hate Action Day in their respective cities. In the long term, we hope to expand our program to broader civic engagement on bipartisan issues that matter to all youth. Personally, I will be piloting our program within my school and the communities to which I belong. For example, I have worked with Arcadia City legislatures to explore implementing the same bill that Senator Newman is introducing, and I will do so for many cities in the San Gabriel Valley. I'm also introducing the Act Against Hate Alliance Youth Initiative in the form of club programs at Flint Ridge Prep and other local schools so that students can take action with me. This is not a one-man job. This is something that our whole generation has to get involved with. With the level of apathy that we see today, we must take the initiative on making a change. Hate crimes are a serious problem in our society. They are not only a violation of the victim's rights, but they also tear at the fabric of our communities and create fear and mistrust. We must take a stand against hate crimes and send a clear message that such acts will not be tolerated. The way we do that today is through our current efforts, but the way we continue our movement tomorrow is through the youth. That is why I am so proud today to be working with Act Against Hate Alliance and showing this program off to you in this press briefing. Thank you so much. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to me at my phone number 626-693-8899 or to my email address 24chao, CHAOAI, at flintridgeprep.org. I'm sure Maymay and Bob will provide it to you. Thank you so much for showing up to this press briefing. Thank you so much for promoting our cause, taking action against hate. I feel so privileged to speak in front of all of you. And may God bless California, may God bless our youth, and may God bless America. Thank you very much.
I think you can see why we were impressed with Aiden, and the same is true with our next presenter, David Chan. David is a sophomore political science major at UC Berkeley. He was born and raised in Orange County, where he initially began his civic engagement. After launching a 501c3 in his sophomore year of high school, David discovered his passion for developing positive change in the community and pursued that goal by assisting elected leaders. He's interned for a Yorba Linda City Council member and 2 now elected U.S. representatives and a U.S. senator. David currently attends UC Berkeley as a second-year student studying political science and serves as a leader in several student organizations. David, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Senator Huff and May for inviting me. It's an absolute pleasure speaking to you all today. And I know that this topic, hate, it's not something easily discussed, because hate is a powerful emotion that is unfortunately universal. And because every single human is susceptible to hate, it takes all of us to stand up against it, to push it out of our communities. And the main point that I wanted to discuss is how can we utilize the younger generation and campuses to fight hate within our communities, as well as stand up to the hate crimes that we see today. Moving from Orange County up to the Bay Area has been quite of a culture shock for me, as I'm sure many of you can imagine. It's almost like living in 2 different states. And unfortunately, I have witnessed hate crimes up here in the Bay Area, specifically in the San Francisco and Oakland area, where I've seen older generation Chinese elderly attacked, brutally beaten for almost no reason at all. Sometimes it's as if this hate is completely inexplainable. There's no reason to it. And it just seems, it's very sad, and it's very discouraging, I think, for our society to look upon. But I believe that the answer to this question is not just true civic engagement and the promotion of appreciation for diversity of thought, but it's consistently choosing compassion and making this compassion known. And I believe that that is possible through the younger generation. As our culture goes through ongoing changes, it's important for us to remember that if we can positively influence the younger generation and really start this movement that I know that Senator Hoff and May are embarking on, this is how we're going to be able to flush hate little by little over the course of time. And here on Berkeley's campus, we are pretty much surrounded and live every single day with people from every single background, ethnicity, and identity. And it's because we have this chance to really develop an understanding between everyone as we work together on different projects, on different student campus organizations, to even just working with people in class. It resonates with the way that we all perceive, treat, and appreciate one another. And so just imagine if our community and our public were able to engage with one another at the same level that students on campus are able to. Just imagine the level of understanding that we would have for one another. And I personally believe that we need to take this stance amongst our younger generation as we continue to power students at every single campus at the local level. Because combating hate and hate crimes now also means combating hate and hate crimes for the future. Through the younger generation, we will be able to start to build up a lot of these initiatives that Aiden just mentioned, as he and I partner with each other to bring in high schoolers and colleges across the entire state to not just bring up the discussion, but actually take a stance against this. This lack of civic engagement that we find here in our community is amendable right now because of the continuous political polarization that we see at our country's level. We know that this is funneling down, and we know the way that this is impacting our community. We see it in our social media, that is something that's also universal. The hate that we see that on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. And so for us to be able to say that we want to take a stance against hate and hate crimes, it means empowering the younger generation and pushing the younger generation into taking these stances on our campuses, so that when we all grow up and we're older and we're in your guys' shoes, we will be the ones to continue fighting for this message, making positive change, and continuing the cycle of empowering our younger generation, pushing us into compassion and pulling us away from hate, divisiveness, and hostility, which is the main cause of any type of hate that anyone has. So I just want to thank Bob and also Mamie so much for having me here today where I could discuss this with you guys. I also want to thank the press. And I'm very excited for the future that we have here with the Act Against Hate Alliance, along with the work that we're planning on doing at our local levels. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And you keep talking about pushing people to action. It looks like you're pulling people to action, and we certainly appreciate the leadership you have exemplified even back in high school. But now, as someone representing an older generation, I am inspired by your clear vision of what needs to be done, because, they say if you don't aim at anything, you're sure to hit your target. But you certainly articulated a lot of things that we need to do to help reverse this trend of rising hate. And it is through education. It is through what each of us can do. And certainly as a member of a younger generation, grasping this at an early age and working with your student colleagues and helping to develop chapters of Act Against Hate Alliance on campus. You're doing great work. We appreciate all that you're doing, and hopefully some of the audience will have some questions for you later. So Mei, can you check the chat? I haven't had an opportunity to do so yet. Do we have any questions there?
Yes, we have a question from for Chief Carlson, and then one for Dr. Amara. So
okay, I see it here. Chief Carlson, it appears you have, this is from Lauren Morrison, it appears you have gained a growing global audience for your commendable and unprecedented action against hate crime that occurred in San Ramon. How can you optimize this extraordinary level of attention to motivate and instruct, oops, just lost the thing, and instruct, where are we?
instruct law enforcement agencies everywhere.
Agencies everywhere to respond with equal fervor to address hate crimes in their communities. Hopefully I didn't garble that too much and you can read it yourself, but how do you respond to that?
So to me, the most important part is continuing the momentum. And I think that's critical. And, when Senator Huff, when you reached out to me several weeks ago about being here for this, I jumped at the opportunity because education is the most important part. It's been mentioned so many times just within these 40 minutes that we've been together here, and capitalizing on that to educate and to encourage and to show people in my chosen profession, this is what you can do and this is what you should do. And understanding that the tools are there for us to be able to do it. And it really is setting that standard. I've already been in close communication with Assemblywoman Rebecca Bauer-Cahan. I actually saw her at a Martin Luther King Day event that we had in San Ramon on Monday, and talked to her about what took place and really being there to spread the word, to increase the momentum, and to capitalize on what it is, to make sure that everyone in law enforcement understands what we can do, what we should be doing. And it's back to what I mentioned before. It's setting that example and showing people this is what you can do and this is what we should do. We've chosen this profession to be, in essence, if you want to call it, guardians, or to protect the community. That's what we signed up for. And this is a critical component to that, because far too often these types of incidents that we incur in San Ramon, which was specifically related to hate speech, down the road, they escalate into significantly more dangerous situations for individuals. And for us, being able to take the actions that we did in the time manner that we did, to me, I believe we saved something from escalating further, because shortly after we had made the arrest of the suspect in our case, I was contacted by a deputy district attorney in Colorado who informed me that they were actually prosecuting a case against the suspect in our case that had turned violent. And it was a situation that we wanted to avoid here in San Ramon as much as possible. And, knowing that we were able to take the actions and potentially solving something that could have escalated into something further just makes it all worthwhile. And I think it's the educational component and being out there, being active, being available whenever I can be, to spread the word and to really educate and to represent law enforcement and encourage that we can take these actions that we did, and just keeping that momentum rolling.
So Chief, you were describing to me before everything began, and you may have said a little bit in your comments, but San Ramon's about 80,000 people, a little bit of a bucolic neighborhood. It's mostly a new community, but certainly it comes with challenges. And, today we see that police and society have created a barrier between them, whether in some communities it's the police that drive that, in other communities it's the community that drives that, but it's still something that has to be resolved. How would you describe the efforts that your community leaders, you and your department, the educational system, how have you overcome that to create this atmosphere where there's a unified action against something like this when it pops up? Is that something you can put your finger on?
Sure, and believe me, I'm a fairly heavy advocate for the San Ramon Police Department, obviously, and I could go on for an hour about what we've done, but I think it all boils down to how we approach policing in our community. We are a very, it's a quiet town, a town of 85,000 people, but it's a very family-oriented community. We have a phenomenal school district, phenomenal community members here, but we have worked tirelessly to make sure that the community knows that we're here as a service-based law enforcement organization. We do have to, and there are times that we take enforcement actions, and that's what we're here for as well. But service is our number one component. Going all the way back to, we started as an organization in 2007. So before that, we contracted our police services with the Sheriff's Department in Contra Costa County. But since we became a municipal policing organization, our first chief of police, Scott Holder, used a description of how we were going to provide law enforcement services to our community by describing it as, you will provide Nordstrom level service. And I think it put it in a way that everybody understood clearly that we will be there when the community needs us. If someone calls us at 2 a.m. and says, I lost my keys in the bushes, we're going to go and we're going to help them find them. And that's what our approach has always been. We have several programs that really encourage community engagement, community involvement. And I think the key component is that we do everything we can as a law enforcement agency to have the community understand who the people are behind the uniforms. And I think that's a critical component, because when they get to know who we are as people, you tend to see the person less as an officer, but see the person as the individual they are. And we have an organization that's full of incredible people who are dedicated to serving our community. And this was just one example of what we do to serve the city of San Ramon. And it's turned into a very well publicized example, but to me, the actions that we took and what our investigative team did after the fact is just what they do every single day. So I think it just enhances and really develops and continued development of that service-based approach for a law enforcement organization.
Great, thank you for that. And we have another question for Dr. O'Mara. At the K-12 school level, where hate is often exemplified by bullying behavior, can you require parental involvement in bringing a halt to this behavior by their children?
Thanks for that. Of course, we would call parents as soon as one of these situations happened and invite them in for a conversation about what led up to the incident, both on the part of the person who did the bullying and the person who received the bullying, and invite them to participate in the restorative practice justice program or the guided reflection program that we had. We don't have the authority to mandate their involvement, but the more of the family that gets involved, we have found the more effective that outreach becomes. And the more the parents are involved, the more likely it is not to repeat itself. I will say this, in a lot of our urban settings here in the Midwest, many of these students simply don't have parents or don't have parents who are around on a daily basis, or are struggling with other things at home or away from home. So we have clinical psychologists and school social workers who are very well versed in how to manage those kinds of situations. But to the original question, we get parents in as often as we can to have these discussions.
Awesome, thank you. I'm looking at the chat.
Bob, there's a question. There's another question posed for Chief Carlson.
I see that one, and it's a very long one. Let's move to David Chan's as I try to understand the other one and make it succinct. David, given your leadership and vision at the university level, can you help to encourage expansion of your anti-hate initiative to other schools?
Hi, can everyone hear me? I'm so sorry about that. And yes, okay, awesome. Yes, so I actually have a really good relationship with pretty much almost every single school here in California. A lot of the civic engagement that I participate And I already have developed relationships with a lot of other student leaders from other University of California schools, along with private schools across California. So it is definitely within our plans to be able to utilize kind of the community that we already have to really push this message against hate as we develop our Act Against Hate Alliance organizations amongst our universities. And I know that Aiden also has relationships with other high schools in the area as well. So he and I will be partnering throughout this process to really start to implement these organizations within our campuses. And we will be functioning all together as one, and even partnering with one another, because there are many schools that are, yes, I will send you my email, absolutely. And we'll be partnering with one another with the schools that are in close proximity. So for example, we will be partnering with San Francisco State along with Stanford and even Davis up here in the Bay Area. And this is something that these schools are also briefed on and 100% participating in as well. So I do think that, you know, what Senator Bob Huff and what what they're both doing here for California, especially for the younger generation, it's definitely going to have a huge positive impact, something that I know that we can all be quite excited and looking forward to for the future.
Thank you, David. In looking at this question, and I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, Chief, but Thelma has commented on a hate crime case, Roque versus Weber, now being heard in the Van Nuys court. And the consistent thread is lack of empathy and encouragement from, unfortunately, the law enforcement at the time of reporting, where the victims were both verbally and physically abused, were also almost discouraged from taking it to the legal courts. And goes on to say it's been delayed a couple of months and moved. What else can be done to move this case at an ideal pace and place? And I'm not sure that's a question for you or for an attorney. You're certainly familiar with the legal system, because what you and your officers do in prosecuting crime, you're the first step, and then it gets handed off to the district attorney or the legal system to see that. Do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, you know, that I was able to read through the question there. It's a little difficult for me to provide any insight or comments on that, just because I'm not familiar with the case itself or the judicial process. Now, it's Van Nuys court, so my assumption would be that's through the LA court systems. And unfortunately, the familiarity with the process down there kind of negates any expertise that I'd be able to provide.
Yeah, you know, unfortunately, what it sounds like, and I don't know anything about this case in particular, but it goes back to, you've got a great community, you're engaged in it, you live in it, you thrive in it, frankly, and then there's other areas, and they tend to be in larger cities where you have pockets of different ethnicities and everything that creates this tension and, you know, perhaps, and I don't know, larger police forces don't engage as well. I know LA used to have be engaged in community policing, and I think they still are to a degree. But we had previously on our program the head of the Rio Hondo Police Academy down here, and he had a representative from Black Lives Matter that came, and they, at the end of the presentation and listening about the curriculum and everything, they said they're very impressed. They were doing a lot of things they didn't know. And it all went real positive until this person says, but you're still all bigots. You know, so it happens on both sides of things. We have these preconceived notions that are just difficult to break based on perhaps our own experiences, but we've got to be able to get beyond that, either individual and as communities, to take a breath, listen to what they have to say, understand what they're trying to say, and then figure out how to move together as we all seek to address these horrific rise in crime. If you can, if any of you look at this later on, Senator Newman had some astounding statistics. I know there's a lot of statistics on every subject out there, but it's an even higher percentage increase in Asian crimes. But let me just say this, while the percentage of growth has been horrific in the last few years in Asian related hate incidents, the brunt of them, almost half of them, or a little bit over half, still fall upon the Black community. And they've historically been the target of it. They continue to be the target of hate crimes. And as a society, we need to not only seek to reverse these biases that entangle them, but also the other targets of hate crimes, including the Asians. So that pretty much wraps our program today. We're about out of time, unless we have another quick question. Has anything else come in, Mamie?
Yes, there is a question to Tim Shaw.
Okay, and we got a few minutes here. Tim, I see it here. How collaborative are school boards across California in working together to address hate issues in the schools?
Across the entire state, there's an organization, the California School Boards Association, which works on things at that level, the statewide level. I've not personally been too involved. I do believe there is quite a bit of collaboration, though, through that organization. You know, within our county here in Orange County, we have 28 local school districts that we have within Orange County at the K-12 level, and that we provide some services to. But, you know, the superintendents of each of our district and our superintendent speak regularly here. So across our county, there is quite a bit of collaboration at the statewide level. You know, our leadership comes a lot from, of course, from the governor and the legislature and the School Boards Association.
Well, just to follow up on that, not to put you on the spot, but as a leader in the education community in Orange County, can your organization develop a Q&A or some kind of program that you can put out to the different schools so that they can understand? And maybe they have it already, but my experience with schools, a lot of times their own little fiefdoms and they're sort of run that way. But I don't know how much collaboration, and it might be through my ignorance that there exists, but it seems like, you know, you could raise some issues, send out to them and have a resource line or something that they could call into or email and get more information. Is that something that could fall within your realm? I'm not asking you to commit to it.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I should mention too, I believe there's the Human Relations Commission at the county level. It's not our agency, but there's a county Human Relations Commission. But I appreciate that suggestion, Senator, and I will definitely work on that.
All right, very good. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming today. We've heard some amazing insights from all of our presenters, including those that had tape. I wish we could ask them some questions. But to our media friends, we will be emailing you a link to today's program that has all the pertinent attachments, including a model press release. We hope today's program provided useful data or information you can share with your audiences. The future we are all creating today must overcome hate, and we here at Act Against Hate Alliance, with your assistance, hope to help lead the way. On Saturday the 28th, use your pen, your microphone, your camera, your social media to acknowledge Stop the Hate Action Day, a day of meaningful reflection and activities that will continue to develop over the next year as this passes through the legislature and becomes more codified. Also, be sure to mark your calendar for next month's briefing. It's coming early in the month, February 8th at 11 a.m. Thank you all for attending. Thank you, speakers. We appreciate so much your comments. That concludes today's program. Okay, it's a wrap.
Very good. Thank you, Bob. And thank you to all of the speakers.
Yes, thank you again for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it.